we are right now suffering the consequences of the economic stimulus and the bailouts of 2001 and 2002 and 2003. If we would have had a more severe recession, we would not be in this mess today. So the question is, what are going to be the consequences of what we're doing now? And what I think is going to happen is that ultimately, people like the Chinese and the rest of the world, the Saudis and the Japanese and everybody else, they're going to figure this out. And they're not going to want to play this game anymore. You know, we've got them conned right now. You know, in my book, in Crash Proof, I compared it to Tom Sawyer. You know, there was that passage in Tom Sawyer where Tom gets everybody, all the kids in the neighborhood, to whitewash his fence. And he gets them to pay for the privilege of doing his chores. And, you know, when Mark Twain wrote that passage, I mean, he probably had no idea that it would one day form the basis for the entire global economy. But we've got the world painting our fences. You know, like they don't have their own fences that need painting. But the world is not going to accept this economy. You had Hillary Clinton, when she went over to China a couple of weeks ago, to get them, to beg them to buy our bonds, right? She'd tell them, we're all in this together, right? And basically this is what she tells the Chinese. You need to take money away from your citizens and loan it to us so we can give it to our citizens so they can use it to buy products made in your company to keep your people employed. That's the deal that we're making with them. Now, what the Chinese should say to Clinton is, you know what, I got a better idea. Why don't we just leave our money with our own people, and then they can use the money to buy their own products. That way we get to keep our stuff. You know, the way it is now, we get all the stuff, and all they get is the jobs. Well, what good are jobs without stuff? That's slavery. So they're going to figure it out. And what's going to happen is they're not going to buy our bonds, and the Fed's going to start buying all the bonds, and the dollar is going to plunge. And this crisis is going to end up being a currency crisis. And when it becomes a currency crisis, then you're going to have higher consumer prices, and you're going to have higher interest rates. Right now, you know, we're creating a lot of inflation. A lot of people are talking about, oh, there's not inflation, it's deflation, right? That's all nonsense. Real estate prices are falling because they're too high. Stock prices are falling. But that's not deflation. That's just falling prices. There is no contraction of the money supply. It's growing like crazy. But the expansion of the money supply is not immediately showing up in rising prices for commodities or consumer goods because there are other temporary factors that are pushing prices down. At the same time, inflation is pushing prices up. You've got deleveraging, you've got bankruptcies, going out of business sales, you've got a lot of companies liquidating their inventory, and you have the dollar strong. And what happened was, paradoxically, when this crisis began, money flowed into America instead of fleeing America, which it will do ultimately. Can you imagine there's a giant, you know, explosion and everybody's running towards the blast? That's what's going on. And when people look around the world and they say, well, people are coming to America because as bad as it is every place else, it's so much worse here. That's nonsense. That's just what they're saying to explain it. Just like they tried to justify the real estate bubble or the internet bubble. That's all nonsense. I mean, the reason it's so bad in the rest of the world is because they loaned us so much money and we can't pay them back. And now they're losing based on their bad loans. And what's really causing the global credit crunch is that we're borrowing so much money right now. We're crowding out everybody else. The fact that people are loaning us so much money means that private businesses around the world can't get capital. Why? Because it's all going to the U.S. government. That's why. So the world is suffering not because our economy is collapsing, but because they're foolishly trying to prop it up. And when they figure this out, then we're going to get a real economic crisis. Because when the dollar starts to plunge, and it will, then we're going to see prices rising sharply for consumer goods and interest rates rising. And if we think we have problems now, wait till we see how much worse they get when we throw rising consumer prices and rising interest rates into the mix. And there's nothing the government's going to be able to do about it. You know, right now, unemployed people are getting the benefit of lower prices. Imagine when you're out of work and your prices are going up. Because that's what's going to happen. And then this is going to be a real economic crisis. And then we're going to be in for very, very difficult choices.